Hey everybody, it's Celia Ward-Wallace from South LA Cafe. So excited to be with you today. I am joined with 2 out of the 3 of my favorite guys that are a part of Conaxion, which is a nonprofit organization that does a lot of amazing work around helping small business owners and people doing community work in our neighborhoods. I'm joined with Oscar Aguayo and Marco Garza. These guys are dear friends. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback on my end, so just make sure that we all have our volume down a little bit. And we are coming from all of our homes in the midst of the COVID-19, pandemic.
Right.
And we have met many times in person since the opening of the cafe and had already had a lot of ideas in the works about ways we can collaborate together. I myself have my own coaching and consulting firm working predominantly with small businesses. And these guys, day in and day out, are advocates for small business owners and aspiring small business owners. And so we've had great conversations of all of the innovative and outside of the box ideas and solutions that we're working on a daily basis. But we also had a lot of ideas about ways we could collaborate together. And then COVID hit, and here we are at home. And yet we have been staying in contact and been discussing what we're seeing, what we're facing, not only in our own businesses, but in those that we serve on a daily basis. And so we've talked a lot about many things that we hope over time to come back and share. But the purpose of this particular conversation is to look at the SBA, disaster relief loan process. And, these guys are working behind the scenes to figure out the process to help support small business owners, nonprofit owners, nonprofit organization founders and leaders, and even sole proprietors navigate the process of applying for this loan. And I myself, along with Joe, we have applied for it ourselves and have navigated it. And one of the things we discussed as we talked before going live with you guys is, how much it's changing on a daily basis and how hard it is to keep up with this freaking loan. And so while we've all spent a lot of time thinking about it, every time we come together to talk about it, it seems like the process has changed. And so what we want to talk today about is sort of a macro level understanding of the loan process, the things that we think are sort of timeless and are not changing for now that we know. But we also want to talk about maybe some of the things that are more nuanced, that seem a little bit more complicated and possibly have been changing. From if you are somebody who already applied, you may want to watch this and see if what you did was right or if the process has changed since then. And if you're somebody who hasn't yet applied, you want to watch this and learn, are you eligible for it? What are the requirements? What is the process as we know it to be right now? But that being said, before we jump into the nitty gritty, and they've also created a great slideshow presentation that we're going to go over shortly. Would you guys like to talk a little bit maybe about yourselves, your background, the organization, and in general, sort of the intention for today's call? Who wants to begin?
You can fill this one, Oscar.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Oscar. We're here at Conaxion. We're in South Central Los Angeles, and it's going through some hard times right now with the COVID-19, how it's affected everybody here in the community, especially the small businesses. It's been a little bit tough, but there's still a lot of great things that you're able to do. But yeah, we're here to continue to support.
Yeah, and we're all being faced with certain challenges, whether it's at home, with our businesses being negatively impacted. And really what we want to do is show everyone that we're a strong community, that we're able to come together, pull our resources, our knowledge, and be able to share with everybody, not only us sharing with you, but you sharing with us the resources that you have available so that we can share that with everybody else using our social media, using our YouTube, by whatever means possible. We want to really come together and show the community that we're going to get past this and we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. So just to give some context, I'm messing with my hair here, but Joe's at the cafe right now. I'm at home at our home located 5 minutes away, smack dab in South Central. Our girls are in the other room. This week is spring break for them, so they're vegging out with our dog. It is a dark and gloomy day. It's raining, and I'm home, working on loans and grants. I just shared with these guys that I just tried to apply for the LA County whatever grant that 1,000,001 people so graciously contacted us and said, please make sure you apply, and I was like, I'm on it. Like, I have a whole plan in place. I'm going to apply. And I had spent a full day preparing all of the documents that I thought they were going to be asking for. And I just shared with these guys that I went, first of all, it's one of those things where it said it's opening at 8 a.m. And so it's like 7:55, you're like hitting the button, like, can I apply? Okay, no. Can I apply? No. Okay, 8 o'clock. Okay, open. Nope, no, it's not going through. And literally it wasn't until 8:12 that I clicked the button and finally it opened up. And in the meantime, in the background, on Instagram, and I'm in a Slack channel with this other incubator I'm a part of, everybody was like, what's going on? Did it crash? Like, we can't get in. And I'm like, okay, good. It's not just me. Everybody can't get in. But here's another example of like the challenges that, all of the different agencies that are, being tasked with these so-called opportunities or programs to provide funding, I don't think are adequately prepared for how to manage these processes and the technology behind it. And so I go in and I'm like feverishly finally in. Okay, yes, I'm in. Because the other thing they said, they're only going to take 150 applications. They said that from the beginning. So everybody was contacting me like, don't forget to apply because it might not even be available like 3 minutes after they open it, So I'm like I'm typing, I'm filling everything out. I'm like, whoo, I got this. I get to the end of the application and they're like, upload the documents. And I'm like, I already did the documents. So like, I have those things. Like, I'm just feeling like a freaking rock star. And as I'm uploading it, it's like, of course, you have those like downloads of like, oh crap, did I say the right thing on the thing? Because I might have said the wrong thing and then I don't want to get declined because I said the wrong thing. Okay, let me just go back real quick and check what I said. And I hit the back button and I swear to God, it rejected me out of the system. Like, it bounced me out of the system. And so their interface was not designed for any going back and forth at all, which is so old school, right? Especially with something as important as this. But I literally got kicked out and ended on a page that said, apply. And so I was like, oh crap, here it goes. I got to start from the beginning. Okay, I'll do it. I click on it. And as soon as I click on it, it says, join the wait list. This application is closed, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, are you, And so I was sharing with them that I've already, spent about 2 hours this morning crying and feeling really, really sad about that. And a good friend of mine who does spiritual work, I was like, I just have to vent to you what happened. And she was like, I'm really sensing a deep level of shame, which is almost going to make me cry right now. But I was like, you're right. There is like, I do feel shame. Like, this is very important that we needed that money and we were ready to receive it. And they would have, I felt confident they would have funded us. If I hadn't just have clicked that freaking back button, we would have $10,000, is the way that I was feeling. So I felt like such a loser. But I say that, and then I had a conversation with myself as well of like, well, am I just going to tell people we applied because like everybody wanted us to apply and they were sending it to us. And so everybody's going to be like, you applied, right? And I was like, no, that's not what we're about. We're about keeping it real and sharing the realities of what a challenging time we're in. And even those who so-called are so prepared can make mistakes or be a statistic, in the mix up of technology. And so I wanted to start a little bit just with that preface and that story to show some humility and also just show like, hey, we mess up sometimes too. systems mess up, technology messes up, things are changing every day, and it's a crazy moment we're in. And so as we start to talk about this SBA loan, I think it's good to have the context of there is no right or wrong. The goal is that people would be moving forward and attempting to get funding. And yet these processes are very stressful, and, complicated. And, for the three of us have been studying business, for decades. But the average person, the average small business owner, and maybe you guys can speak to that a little bit of like, who are in general your clients that you're working with? Like, what is the average small business owner you're working with? And what are, potentially some of the challenges or disadvantages that they're facing as far as moving forward with the opportunities for funding?
Right. So a lot of our small businesses are all around our community. They're barbershops, they're corner stores, they're all over our community here. And when we go in canvassing, when we talk to them, I think one of the biggest challenges is when we talk to them is their financials. Do they have their financials in order? A lot of times they don't. They know how to run their business. They've been running their business. But when it comes down to documentations and records to be able to keep, they don't have it whatsoever. A lot of times is throughout the years, they just get used to running their business the way they know how to run it, and at one point with this type of disaster that happens, this is where it comes back and then bites them. And it's horrible. So we got to be able to be there to be able to support them. And what is it that they need? Do they need to be able to learn how to put their numbers together and things like that to be able to show? So that's something that we see.
Yeah, and the majority of the businesses that we work with, like Oscar mentioned, all types of different businesses, child care centers, little restaurants, bodegas. But one thing that the common denominator is that most of them struggle financially as a business. And like Oscar mentioned, their personal and their business finances quite often are intermingled. And so they were struggling already before COVID-19 hit.
Yeah.
So now that we're dealing with this, well, it's a health crisis that's turned into an economic crisis for many of us. Things have just gotten that much harder for all of us. And so this is the normal business and what they're going through in our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're bringing up a really great example of sort of the inequities. I know we're seeing it on the health side too, right? Like the most recent statistics that are coming out about the disparities and, African-American people, might be 15% of the population, and yet in some states they're 40% of the deaths, right? And I think that's very illuminating. And I mean, it's horrific, but it's also illuminating of, how could that be possible? And what does that mean? And how do we get to the root of the issue that caused that in the first place? It's not necessarily going to solve the problem right now for, the health impact of this virus on the African-American community, but it is illuminating the issue that there is deep seated, work that needs to be done to have the conversation around that issue in the first place. And so similarly, what you're bringing up around the sort of class and race and citizenship issues around, entrepreneurship is supposed to be the so-called, path to the American dream. And, especially immigrant communities, it's sort of the best option, to make beyond a living wage, right? And to have some level of autonomy. But there are so many solopreneur businesses or, family businesses, like you said, where, maybe they're just doing what they got to do to get by, and they have these systems and processes in place that is, specific to how they run their business. But nobody ever came in and gave them the blueprint of, the 10 steps, you have to do to, essentially prepare yourself for financing or lending in the future, right? Because if you're not concerned about being able to qualify for a loan, but you're able to pay your bills and, bring home enough cash to support yourself, you pay your taxes. Beyond that, for a lot of people, they're like, well, why do I need why do I need to do any of these things? Or maybe I don't need to do any of those things. And so like you're saying, you really do see the widening, class, race, citizenship divide that already is in place, but is illuminated even further right now as we start to pursue these loan programs and grant programs, where they're all of a sudden they're saying, you can apply and we can help you, but you have to meet these certain requirements and you have to provide certain documentation, which,
Right.
like you're saying, a lot of people don't. So I want to get into looking at specifically the SBA loan and what we know at this point about it. But I'm just curious, if you are somebody who's watching this and you're like, oh crap, they're right. I don't have, my financials, set up. I haven't been doing bookkeeping, or I don't even know what a profit and loss statement is. What do you recommend people do so that they can get those, things in place now?
Right. So for one, we have to back it up a little bit and look and take it month by month. You got to be able to, what your expenses is from the first month to the last month. Being able to collect those receipts, being able to calculate your receipts, it's important. So if you take it month by month, then what ends up happening is you can, there's online, you can get a lot of forms that allows you to put all your financials into specific forms in order for you to get a financial statement, or else we can also help you out with that too. But yeah, you take it month by month, because if you look at it in the long run, 12 months or 2 years ago, it becomes very challenging and very difficult. So you got to back it up and start month by month in order for you to collect your data. And at the end of the year, you're able to calculate these numbers.
And so if people need help with that though, obviously, like you're saying, there's a way to reconstruct it on your own. It's sort of like, each year when you have to do your taxes, you go back and you're like, oh crap, like I haven't been tracking anything. Now I got to spend like a week, getting my tax prep together. I know that's for a lot of people, that's the boat they're going to be in, of like, I haven't been doing this. This means a lot of work. Now I got to go back and do a lot of work to get these numbers together. Obviously they can do that on their own, or they can Google online and try and figure out how to do it. Are you saying that you guys have the ability to support people with that? Or do you have other people that you can refer them to if they were to contact you?
Absolutely. If they contact us, we can definitely help them. We have the financial sheets for them to be able to plug in their numbers, and we're going to help them calculate the numbers so that they're able to have an income statement, even a balance sheet. The documents that you need to be able to submit to the SBA.
Okay. That's encouraging.
And this is Financial Literacy Month as well at the same time. So some of this topic does tie into what we're talking about. And being that a lot of our businesses have been affected, either slowed down or some of us even completely shut down, this can be an opportunity at the same time for us to reflect on the status of our business and start shoring up some things that'll make it easier for us down the line. If we are looking for a loan, how to be set up for that, right? And so what does that look like? It might potentially mean revisiting your the way you're charging your customers, your POS system, the way you're bringing in merchandise and inventory into your store, the way stuff is moving in and out of your business, so that you don't have to spend that 2 weeks at the end of the year trying to put all of this together, but that you're automating your workflow to make things easier, so that all you have to do essentially is pull reports. So that does take a little bit of work. As Oscar mentioned, Conaxion, we're a resource that can help you out getting those things in order as well.
So you guys are an amazing resource. I also know you're a nonprofit. One of the things that we've talked about in our previous conversations was, how are you guys making any money? How can you get paid? And so I know that you yourself are trying to right now figure out how to navigate these times. And I know that you, like us, have a heart for service. And so a lot of this, you may or may not, charge for because you really want to help people, especially at this time. So I would just definitely recommend anybody who's watching this or listening who feels like they need help, whether it's just a phone call to say, this is my situation, what do you advise? Or something more than that of actual hand-holding, definitely reach out to them. We are going to share our contact information at the end of this call. And just even in the meantime, can you guys share your website and maybe your email if people are just wanting to know right now?
Yeah, sure. Our website, you can visit conaxion.org. And so you'll be able to navigate our website and see our offerings, the services that we provide. So like you mentioned, Celia, a lot of what we do is at no cost. But then, if it does take a little bit more hand holding, then we do have affordable services. But we do have that affordability in mind because of the community we're trying to serve, and ultimately our mission and our vision and why we're even here.
Yes. And so that's CONAXION.org.
That's right.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just about ready for us to jump into the slideshow. I just want to talk a little bit more about the various programs that people may be hearing right now so that they have an understanding of sort of the breadth and scope of what's out there, and then explain which piece of that we're addressing today so that people, I know myself as well as you guys have found this all to be very overwhelming and like you said, fluid and sort of, changing, mutable. It's changing every day. And so, and again, we're people who this is what we do for a living. And, we're called to it, and yet it's very, very challenging for us. So I know for most people watching, it may also feel overwhelming or confusing for them. So I would like to just personally, if I could just take a minute to just step by step, what I've seen that's out there right now and the piece of which we're going to actually discuss. And so we're going to start with the SBA disaster relief loan, specifically oriented towards the COVID-19 disaster. And so there is a loan that is available, and there's not a fixed amount. My understanding is it's something looking at something like 6 months of operating expenses for your business, as a somewhat of a rough ballpark of what amount of loan you may be able to receive. Don't hold me to it. And that is sort of what I would call like the master big SBA loan, which is what we are focusing on today. And then there's a second SBA program, which is a $10,000 SBA advance program or a relief loan. And it's a little bit confusing because it almost has the exact same name, and yet they're just calling it an advance. My understanding with that is essentially, since the SBA loans are taking a very long time for them to process because there's been so many people applying, they have had to say, well, in the meantime, we'll give you a $10,000 advance on that loan if you qualify for whatever that is that they're looking at. And then if you get that advance and later you get the larger SBA loan, the $10,000 that they gave you will be part of that bigger loan. So let's just say hypothetically, it's a $100,000 loan that you're hoping you get. If they give you $10,000, then they'll give you $90,000 later. If for some reason you get into the process and they have approved you for that $10,000 advance, and yet they don't end up approving you for the larger SBA loan, then my understanding is that they will forgive the loan, the advance, the $10,000 advance, meaning it's almost like a grant. Is everything that I've said so far, are you guys in agreement with that?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, okay. But things are changing. But yeah, so far the information that you got is accurate. But things.
Who knows? Yeah. We're where we're at today, and so we're doing the best we can at the moment we're in. We hope that this information is valuable, but if you look at this a week or two or a month from now and you're like, this is completely irrelevant, hey, well, it was relevant at the time we recorded it. But Conaxion is still relevant. They will still be there to support you. South LA Cafe and Joe and I are still relevant. We're still here to support you. The content and the exact details may or may not have changed. But just to say, and I'm not going to go into the details of the other programs, but there is something that's the PPP program. I forgot what that stands for, but it's something like payroll protection program or something like that. That is another thing that you can apply for, and that relates to giving you funding to help with your payroll costs. So look into that. I have more to say about it, but I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to confuse the subject matter. There is also, if you're in Los Angeles, there is also the City of Los Angeles microloan program. that is giving funding up to $20,000. And there's an application process for that as well. So look into that. And then there's lots of different grant programs out there, like the one I tried to apply for this morning and got declined for or booted out of. So is there any other key programs that we haven't addressed, you guys, or you feel like that sort of covers most of the bases?
So there are new programs that are coming up all the time. And so, they're out there. We're trying to familiarize ourselves as they're coming up and becoming relevant. But as of now, I think we've covered on the main ones, which is the disaster loan, the county one that you tried for this morning, the PPP, Payroll Protection Program, and the one from the city of Los Angeles.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts, Oscar?
Just, if you're going to apply, just make sure you had all your documents ready to go. Don't submit half of the documents. Just make sure that you fill out all your applications, you put them in a file. When you go to these opportunities to be able to get a grant or apply for loans, you can submit everything, or else they'll kick you back of the line.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is in a moment, we're going to screen share, and we're going to bring up on the screen some slides that Conaxion has created. And what we're going to cover essentially is the requirements for the SBA loan, the criteria for the SBA loan, sort of how it works. And when it gets to how to apply and the process for applying, we'll talk a little bit more about that, because that in itself has changed since we created these slides, and actually since we applied at South LA Cafe. So we'll get into that. That'll be the end of our presentation, is sort of about how to apply and where to apply and what the application process is like. But the intention right now is to really go through the basics of what they're looking for. And I think, like Oscar was saying, you do want to have your paperwork ducks in a row, but you might not know what that paperwork is. And so we'll do our best to address that. But you may also, sometimes I found, you got to go into these things and try to apply, and then get in there and go like, oh, they need these different things. I don't have those yet. Okay, maybe I can't apply for this program right now because I don't have those ready. And then maybe you contact Conaxion or a family member that can help you prepare the documents that you need, and then you go back and apply. So I think one thing to just say is, although wait times do sound like they're very long for this SBA loan program, it also is not going anywhere. And so if you need to wait a few days, or you need to wait a week, until you're really ready to go forward with the application process, I would encourage you to get to a place where you feel centered and prepared, and you have what you need, and you can just go ahead and do it. Because once you have the numbers and the things that they're asking, you're going to be fine. You're just going to fly right through. You'll get on the other side, and you'll get an actual confirmation number that your application has been received. And then you're basically just waiting in the queue for a period of time that we don't know. It sounds like it's potentially 6 to 8 weeks right now before you are contacted. And then once you are contacted, it sounds like that's when things start moving. But the process of waiting for a representative to contact you and say, let's talk about your situation, your case, and see what we can do for you, that in itself may be a delay. Is that what your guys are hearing too?
Yes. Yeah. So it's the Office of Disaster from the SBA, that if they come across any issues within your application, maybe not the correct documents, or they're seeing something that might not align with what they want to see, then they'll reach out to you. We're not sure if they're going to reach out to you via email, via phone, but it's the Office of Disaster from the SBA that will start reaching out to people. They're currently extremely overwhelmed with the amount of applications that are coming in. And so that's why everything has been transferred online. So it's right now, they don't want to deal with the actual printing out of the applications and sending that in through snail mail, as we call it. But everything they want to see now is through the internet.
Yeah. And so you just made me think of one last thing that I want to say before we hop into the slides, is be aware of the scams that are going on right now that often, lower income communities of color, elderly people are most vulnerable to. I've already had tons and tons of people contacting me from websites and emails that have SBA somewhere in it. And it's usually people that are saying they can help you apply for the SBA loan, or they're working with the SBA and they can help you in some way. And so you just want to be careful, because I do think potentially that there are real people that have a business where you work with them and they help you apply. I do think that that exists, but it does seem like there's a lot of sort of scam artists and opportunists that are calling people on their phones and saying, I work with the SBA, da 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 da, and we want to help you submit your application for $300. And so not only are they asking you to pay them, but potentially they're asking you for private, vulnerable information, that things like your social security number or your credit card numbers, or your business information, right? And in general, we know that we're not supposed to be just giving that out to anybody. And yet when you're stressed and you have a business and you want to fill out this loan and you feel overwhelmed and you feel confused, you are an easy target for someone to take advantage of you. So I just want to put that out there. Make sure that you're working with if you need someone to help you, contact Conaxion, or make sure that you're working with somebody that is part of a reputable organization, and that you're actually taking your time to research them, not just jumping right in with somebody overnight. Have you guys been hearing that as well?
Yes, absolutely. This is a prime opportunity for fraudsters to take advantage of small business owners who need some assistance, very much needed assistance. And so, yeah, to be clear, the SBA, the resource centers that are out here in the city of LA, Conaxion, South LA Cafe, we would never randomly hit up any small business owner via email or telephone soliciting anything in regards to these loans or these government programs. And so, yeah, they're phishing scams. They're trying to obtain your personal information to access your bank account and some identity fraud. And so that's ramping up right now. And so you really want to be careful. Now, once you've made contact with the SBA or one of these resource centers, then yeah, there's going to be some mutual communications back and forth. But that's a very good point, Celia, and something to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to jump into the slides. Let's see. And then I'm going to go full screen. Can you still see those?
Yes.
Yes,
okay. And then on my screen, I'm going to actually close us all the way up. So I won't be able to see you guys, but I'll be able to see the slides. And you guys can still see everything okay?
Yeah, and we can move over to the first slide, the one after our names and our titles.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, here we go. So, just to start this presentation off, these loans are being provided by the U.S. government, more specifically the United States Small Business Administration. And these are low interest economic injury disaster loans. So we'll be referring to them as EIDLs. And so they are, as Celia mentioned, they're already available to small business owners who have been impacted by the loss of revenue due to COVID-19.
If I can just jump in on that also, I don't know if it's on the next slide, but I just want to say also, if you have a nonprofit organization or you are an independent contractor, it looks as though you would be eligible as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So, what are these loans for? These loans are for small business owners that were affected. These loans are a form of working capital. Working capital refers to funds that you are able to use for everyday needs or activities. In other words, these loans, this working capital, they're for your financial obligations, your operational expense. Your expense is pretty much your fixed debt payments, your payroll, account payables, your rent, your water and power, and things like that. But I wanted to make clear that this working capital, it's not to replace any revenue lost or profits or funds expansion. But this working capital is strictly for financial obligations to pay for your operation expense.
Got it. Moving forward. Okay, keep going.
Okay, so these are the prerequisites to qualify for this loan. So individuals applying need to check off all of these bullet points. Now, the first one, everyone qualifies, because if your small business is located, it doesn't matter in what county here in California, all counties qualify. You know, like Celia mentioned, things are changing day to day. And what it's looking like is that it's not gonna matter which county in the entire country. You're all gonna be eligible if just by being a small bit, having a brick and mortar within the United States, you're gonna be able to qualify. But as long as you're in California, you're good to go. And for as far as annual sales are concerned, you have to be making under $8 million within the service and retail industries. Now, if you're in the manufacturing industry, they're looking at how many employees you have. So you have to be under 500 employees. Again, for most of the clients that we work with, you're going to qualify for that as well. Now, this third bullet point, no cash reserves elsewhere, I do believe this one's going away. But what it represents is some cash holdings, some assets that you have elsewhere that can be in the form of CDs, in the form of stocks, or maybe in other bank accounts. Typically what the SBA wants to see is that you're able to use up your own cash resources before you go to them. But again, this is going to be for really, really high earners with a lot of assets. We don't see this being a problem. And so moving on to the next one, you have to be, or I'm sorry, the next bullet point, you have to be a citizen of the United States, or you have to have your green card. And as far as funding industries, the industries that will not be funded are churches, casinos, any business within the cannabis industry, pawn shops, or the porn industry. The SBA will not fund any of those ventures. And so now we're going to go into eligibility. So the eligibility part of this, whether you qualify or not, is really broken down into 3 areas. And those 3 areas is they're going to take a look at your credit history. They're going to take a look at your public records on file. And they're also going to take a look at your ability to service your debt. So let's jump into the first one, which is credit history. There we go.
Okay, for credit history, they want to make sure that in the past 2 years, you have no bankruptcy. So no bankruptcy in the past 2 years. You need to be able to have a score greater than 600, but we know a lot of the small businesses out there that they don't really use their credit. You know, they're not using that. They use a lot of cash. If you're able to show with receipts, your cash flow and everything, that is something that they'll look into. But again, they want you to have a credit score of above 600. And also, if they give you this loan, are you able to pay back this loan? That's going to be very important, and we'll go into more details right now.
And if I can add, Oscar,
yes.
Yeah, so, you know, there's that 600 threshold for the score, and they're looking at all 3 of the main reporting agencies. However, we're not here, we cannot tell you that you won't qualify. It's the one SBA that's actually going to look at the specific details. So for example, if your score is under 600, maybe it's 540, 560, we still urge you or recommend you to apply. Because there's still circumstances where you'll be able to get this loan if you're able to explain why that score is what it is. Maybe you had a medical emergency. You know, there's so many reasons out there. So even if it's under 600, we say go for it.
So this is public records on your credit report. It's going to have public records. So one thing is if you've a small business and you've taken out before an SBA loan, you got to make sure that you're not defaulting that, right? So if you default, they're going to say a no for that one. If you were a student and you took out student loans, you know, you're up to date with it, great. But if you're in delinquent, well, that's going to be a no, okay? Child support. For those of you that owe child support, if it went to delinquents, well, that's going to be a no, as well as tax lien. However, if you have any of these bullet points, but in the past you went and you talked to the IRS or any government agency that was in charge and you worked out a deal in regarding a payment plan, this is something that they're going to look into. So this is still an opportunity for you to apply, even if you were a delinquent, but as long as that you already spoke to somebody in regarding payment structures.
So for the debt servicing capacity, really all this means is cash flow, right? So what's the money coming into your business and what's the money going out of your business? And so what the SBA is looking for is, can you take on this additional loan? And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, we're all going through some tough times. You know, our businesses are struggling. We got our families. Is this loan going to make our situation worse? Because they don't want to put us in a situation where we're going to really sink our business. And so what that means is at the bare minimum, they want to see that your business was breaking even or making a profit. And this is before January 31st, which was the official announcement of this disaster. So again, they want to make sure that your business was operating either at zero or in the green. That's all that this means. And you'll see we put a line through these last two, which is typically over $25,000. They would require collateral, but because they're trying to make these loans a lot more accessible because of the current situation, right now they're not accepting collateral and you don't have to have a personal guarantee. And that's just to move the process along faster.
So for the long term, the SBA, at the end of the day, they're going to determine if you qualify for this loan or not. If you do, as a business owner, you do qualify and you get the loan, you got 30 years to pay it. However, if you feel you can pay this within time, you can pay it within time. The great thing about this loan is that the interest rates are very, very low. They're at 3.75%. Now, you got this loan, but you're still not able to pay your first payment. They can defer your payments up to 12 months. And the great thing about this is that there's no fees, no closing costs, no early payoff penalties.
And as a small business owner, if you're looking for a loan, the SBA is a great way to, these loans are about as good as it gets. So, you know, again, they're not for everyone, but if you're a small business owner and it seems like this is fitting for you, this is going to be a good opportunity for you to inject some capital.
So let's, is this a good time for me to jump in?
Yes. Let's
talk
about the documents.
Okay. So these documents, we don't want you to get too hung up on because, again, this was created before they've now changed their process. And let me just look at what the next slide covers. Okay. So let's just talk about this for a second, and then we'll explain what the current process is when we get through the slides. But that being said, you're going to need to complete an application, and we'll show you where currently that application submission lives online. Eventually, they are going to want to access your taxes, your business taxes, and possibly your personal taxes. So eventually, they will ask you to complete a 4506T form, but it looks like they're doing that later on in the process. So I don't think you're going to need that right away. They also are going to want to see your personal financial statement. Again, not necessarily something they're requiring right now up front, but it is something that you should be prepared to do down the line. And similarly, schedule of liabilities, also not something currently that they're requesting initially to apply, but it does look like on the back end, those will be something that eventually they will be thinking of. And then also, your year-to-date profit and loss statement, they'll want to look at that as well. And your year-end ending 2019 profit and loss statement and balance sheet. And it looks like as well as monthly sales figures. So this is a lot of money and tracking and figures and all of that kind of stuff, which I know can be a little bit overwhelming. So I want you to just pause on this piece and not get lost in the weeds. Because when we come out of the slides, I just want to talk a little bit about my understanding of what the up-to-date application process looks like now. And that while these are things that they will be asking you for, you may end up having some time to work on them as you guys mentioned, once you actually submit at least the initial application. What do you guys think about that?
Yes, I mean, this is absolutely. These are documents that I think as they're cutting out other things, like we talked about, is changing. This makes more sense as they're going to want to require this, so it's better to be prepared with this. This year-to-date profit and loss statement. This is something that the conversations that we had earlier today about being able to help you out in the financial side. There's a lot of this wording gets confusing a lot for a lot of business owners, but then this is where we can help you to be able to categorize whenever you calculate your receipts. We can categorize the numbers so you can be able to have the profit and loss statements and other financial statements that they might ask you for. Right,
exactly. Okay, and then do you want to talk about this piece? Or I feel like you addressed it a little bit already, but go ahead.
Just quickly to recap so that it makes a little bit more sense to the viewers is we talked about the eligibility requirements and we talked about the documentation requirements. And so what the SBA is looking for is these 3 points. The number one is loss. They want you to illustrate the impact of the disaster to your business. So really what that means is how much money in sales were you making before the disaster? How much money were you making after? If you were bringing in $10,000 and now you're bringing in $2,000, there's $8,000 difference. And that's what they want to see. And that's where they're going to be able to determine how much money you qualify for. Number two is the need. They want you to be very specific with this number to be able to illustrate how much money do you need to operate at the bare minimum. So we're talking about what does it cost to get your product and your service out to your customers, and that basic bare minimum, it's got to be a very specific number. That's what they're looking for. And number three is capacity. Can you take on this additional debt and still be able to manage your business and pay this back in 12 months? Because that's going to turn into a monthly payment plan. So the loss, the need, the capacity is from their perspective, what they're looking for you to qualify for one of these disaster loans.
Great. And this is how to contact us. You can always reach Joe and myself and our South LA Cafe team at southlacafe@gmail.com. And you can reach Oscar and Marco at their respective Conaxion.org emails here. Super simple. Let me stop sharing here. And we're back. All right, we covered a lot of information there. And I want to start to wrap up our call today. But before we do, I just want to walk through where to apply and what it will look like now. And so I just, again, want to use a firsthand experience from South LA Cafe's experience applying for this loan that we've just covered. We immediately, as soon as they opened up the loan program, we applied. That was several weeks ago. And the process at that time was totally different. You followed a certain process and they were asking you to upload documents into the system. We were uploading documents, things were getting stuck. You weren't sure whether your application went through or didn't. And then they're like, okay, now email us the documents. So then we started emailing documents. And eventually we got something saying that your application has been received, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. A week or two later, as I was working with some clients like you guys, I was in the system hunting around, and then there was something that looked like a new process, which was similar to what you guys initially were showing me before we started this call today. That was having you fill out the application and then upload the application into the system. And I did that as well then, just trying to make sure that, you know, I wasn't missing anything.
Cover all your bases.
Yeah, exactly. And Joe kept saying to me, he's like, you know, are you sure? Because like, what if you're, you know, have too many applications in the system, they kick one out, they, you know, and I'm like, I don't know, babe. I'm just literally trying to make sure that we don't find out later that we were supposed to do something we didn't do. Right. Mm-hmm. And so all that being said, then this, you know, $10,000 SBA advance program came up as an option. And I thought, okay, I'm going to apply for that. I could not find a page that was specifically only for the $10,000 SBA advance, right? And so I kept clicking around. I couldn't figure it out. I found my way to what I believe and what I showed you guys is now a consolidated online application submission form, where basically you fill it out as if it's only 3 pages. You fill it out as if it is your master SBA loan application for this disaster loan we just discussed. And as you get all the way through, on the last page where you digitally add your signature, there's a button that you click that says, I would like to be considered for the $10,000 SBA advance. And I clicked that. Now, when I filled this out, I thought maybe that was the application for the advance, you know, and so I did it, I clicked the thing, I submitted it. Now come to find out, and this is really important if you're watching this and you were somebody like us who put your application in really early, that if you submitted your application prior to April 1st, they're saying potentially your application is not even in the system anymore because they've now migrated over to a new system, which is the one I'm going to point out to you now. And so that being said, if you're listening to us and you're like, oh my God, I put my application in that old way, Celia, that you're talking about, what do I do? Well, I'm telling you, go and reapply the way that I'm about to show you right now. And so South LA Cafe is like the guinea pig for all of these programs and, you know, hitting all the glitches in the system so that we can show the people what they need to do. So I'm going to screen share real quickly, guys, on, you know, one way or the other, you want to find your way into the SBA.gov site. But where I have found, I'm going to try and make this full screen. If I do, let me know if you can still see it. Can you still see that?
Yes.
Okay. So can you see the link up here? Or let me move my...
The URL is visible, yeah.
Okay, the URL is visible. So again, it's a little bit of like a hunt and peck kind of thing, like trying to find your way around. But what I can find here is if I go down here, it says to apply for the economic injury disaster loan and loan advance, click here. All right. So this is where you want to get to. If you can't find your way here, go back and watch this video and literally try and copy down these URLs. At this point, my understanding is this is the, as they're calling it here, streamlined process requirements. So this is both the application for the you know, larger disaster loan, but also the application for the advance, the $10,000 advance, which it looks like they have consolidated into one. So if you check this out, we'll get through page 1 and 2 because we're going to just click some boxes to show you what it looks like. But at some point we can't get all the way through unless we fill it out, but you can start to get a feel for when you have your information, how potentially quickly you can move through this. And if you don't have all your information, you still could try to start it and see how far you get before you get stuck on a question or stuck on something that they need that you don't yet have. And I just want to point out these, you know, what is this, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, right? And then you get to the summary page. So somewhere around additional information or summary is where you're going to see there's a little button that you click that says, I'd like to be considered for the $10,000 advance. So just please make sure you click that button because at the minimum, you hopefully will get approved for the $10,000, which the whole point is for those of us who have businesses or nonprofits, we're trying to stay alive right now. So, we can't wait 2 months, 3 months for funding. We need funding right now. So that $10,000 hopefully will at least be something that can keep you going a little bit longer. But all of that to say, if we look at eligible entity verification, these are the categories. You have a business with more than 500 employees, a sole proprietorship, a cooperative, I don't know what this is, but employee stock ownership plan, tribal small business, a business including an agricultural cooperative, more than 500, but is somehow a part of the SBA size standards, or a nonprofit. So in the case of South LA Cafe, we're an applicant that does not have more than 500 employees. It sounds like Conaxion would be here under the nonprofit. So if you click that, then you just go down here. The next step is you're going to have to review and check all the following. And you have to click all of these things. So you're not engaged in legal activity. You have 50% or greater ownership. It's not an agricultural enterprise. It's not something to do with, it looks like sort of porn or sexual products or programs. You do not derive more than 1/3 of the gross annual revenue from gambling. It's not lobbying, and you're not a government, entity or a member of Congress. So right. Presuming that you can say all of those things, then you would click continue. And here's where you start to enter in your specific information. Your name. If you have a business, you're going to want to get your EIN number. That's an example of something you want to already have ready. If you have a sole proprietorship, you would use your social security number. Here's where it starts to ask you, what were your gross revenues, and what were your cost of goods? So if you have a business, gross revenue is how much money did you take in the last 12 months. Cost of goods is how much did you spend on purchases in the last 12 months. And you can look at these other categories, but essentially everything that's marked in red are things that are mandatory to complete. And the other categories, if they apply to you, the other sections, you can complete them as well. Your primary business address, your email, when your business or nonprofit was established, what the activity is, and the number of employees. And then you would click next. And so since we're not going to fill that out for ourselves right now, we can't really move forward, but you can see next is sort of information about yourself and your partners if you have any. I can't remember what's on the additional information page, but that may be where you sign and you click that you would like the advance. And then you're basically through. So I just want to say, while we did talk about profit and loss statements, and we did talk about accounting and the importance of all of that stuff, my experience is, while you do need to know how much money your business made in 2019 or even year to date now, as well as how much you spent on purchases, expenses, and that does not include payroll. That is, like for us at the cafe, how much did it cost to buy the things that it, costs to run the cafe? That's what you need to know. Now, you may get all the way through and eventually get contacted, and they're going to need a lot more information, like the things we discussed, your year to date, balance, like your balance sheet and your profit and loss statements and all of that. But it does not appear that you need that to get through to actually applying. And so my advice as we wrap up today's call would be just to say, get those numbers in place. And if you need help with that, contact these awesome guys, and I'm sure they can help you relatively quickly figure out how to do that. And that way you just go ahead and get your application in. Hopefully you get approved for the $10,000 advance. And then let's just say you have a minimum of 4 weeks to work on all those other things that were mentioned in the slides. And if you don't remember what those are, just go back in the recording and look at what we pointed out previously. What do you guys think? Anything I missed?
Very good. I would say that from the SBA's perspective, when it comes to the finances and your financials, they do want to be able to see at some point that you were operating in the green, or at least at ground level.
Yes.
So if you were in the negative, chances are you're not going to qualify for this loan. They're becoming more lenient, you know. So if you're not able to cover at least the next 30 days within your own business, you're probably not going to qualify. This is a tough one because they're trying to widen that gap of people who can qualify, but the people ultimately who can are the people who are okay, very, you know, well off, and the people who are in such bad shape that if they do get the loan, it's really not going to make any significant difference anyhow.
Yeah.
So if you're in that middle, you should be okay. Again, they're trying to widen that gap so that more and more of us can qualify.
Yeah, my thoughts in general, and then let's wrap it up because I know this is a long conversation here, but a fruitful one, I hope. But my thoughts in general is go ahead and apply. It does not hurt to apply. You might get that $10,000 advance, and you might find out later, I didn't get approved for, you know, qualifying for the larger loan, but they're going to go ahead and forgive the $10,000, you know. And so right now, I just say go after everything. And let them tell you later that, you know, you're not approved, but for all you know, you might be. And if you are, then that's a blessing.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Very good.
All right, guys. Any last words as we wrap it up?
Stay strong. If you have any resources for small business owners that you want to share, please do so with us so that we can also share with the rest of the community. Even if they're not for small business owners and they're just resources for our community, please share those. Be strong. We're going to get through this together.
Yeah, be as positive as possible. I know we're going through some hard times, but this is going to be over when you least suspect it. You know, we're going to be here to be able to help you out in anything that you need. So be as positive as possible.
Yeah. And I would just say, be innovative. This is the people that are going to, you know, be able to evolve and come up with new ways to do their business. You know, those are the ones that are going to make it. And so we really want all of our folks to make it. And so it may require for you to learn new skills or, you know, offer a service that you didn't offer before, but that you're seeing a need for right now, right? And so what is it that people need? What are considered essential services? What are things that you can create or offer? Whether or not you make an income for them, you know, just a way that right now as a web of support that we can create, that you can create something that you can give back to people right now that can be supportive. And I just believe on a spiritual level that you will be rewarded for your acts of service and acts of kindness. So as we wrap up this call, I just want to say thank you, Marco. Thank you, Oscar. You guys are amazing. Joe and I are so grateful to be in community with you and Conaxion. Give our love to the team and also the team over there at the big house. And there's more to come from us.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.